A man in Jerusalem has been arrested after posting footage on social media showing his dog steering his car.
Though the car was moving at the time, the dog was seen sitting on the driver's lap with the driver still in control of the wheel. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I'm CJ Hero.
And I'm Nina Richielago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. And now for the headlines.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. returns from his successful trips to Indonesia and Singapore, bringing home more than 800 billion pesos in investment and job opportunities. The Senate Blue Ribbon Committee recommends the fighting of raps against agriculture officials over their involvement in the botched sugar importation. The country's employment rate eases to 5.2 in July, while the Philippine peso plunges to another historic low against the dollar. Downpours and mudslides hamper China earthquake rescue mission with at least 82 reported dead. And a second suspect in Canadian stabbing rampage captured by police has died in the hospital.
He was pronounced deceased at the hospital.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. proudly shares with the Filipinos the success of his inaugural state visits to Indonesia and Singapore. The president arrived home last night with more than 800 billion pesos worth of investments from his Indonesia and Singapore trips. Vin Pascua has the details.
My inaugural state visits to our two important ASEAN neighbors were fruitful and engaging.
This was the statement made by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. upon his arrival in the country from his two-country state visits in neighboring Indonesia and Singapore. The president said he is happy to be back in the country with the success of his trip.
At lalong-lalo na kapag tayo merong namang magandang balita ng kaunti na sasabihin natin may pasalubong na maaring matanggap natin kapag tayo ay ibinuo natin lahat ng sinimula namin dito sa nakaraan na bisita, na state visit na ito.
Marcos has brought with him the letters of intent or LOIs and the memorandum of understanding or MOUs in the sector of renewable energy, data centers, e-commerce, broadband technology, startups, government housing, and agriculture worth $14.36 billion or 804.78 billion pesos.
I am proud to announce that we have signed and sealed a total of 10 letters of intent and 12 MOUs in the sectors of renewable energy, data centers, e-commerce, broadband technology, startups, government housing, and agriculture, and witnessed the signings of several letters of intent and MOUs from 22 Indonesian and Singaporean investors. These investments, if we put it all together, value $14.36 billion or 804.78 billion Philippine pesos. This will support our country's economic recovery efforts and create more jobs for Filipinos here in our country.
Marcos also expressed confidence that the strong bilateral ties with Indonesia will continue.
We look forward to celebrating our Diamond Jubilee or 75 years of official diplomatic friendship in 2024. Notably, President Widodo and I discussed the delimitation of our boundaries respective to our continental shelves which I hope can become a template for resolving conflicting claims. We talked about importing fertilizer into the Philippines and increasing coal imports for our energy supply.
Even the ties with Singapore have become more stronger following his meeting with Singaporean President Halima Yacob and Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong.
President Yacob spoke highly of her state visit to the Philippines in 2019, when our country celebrated our Golden Jubilee, or 50 years of diplomatic relations. Prime Minister Lee and I also immediately made a connection as our fathers, who were the leaders of our countries, laid the groundwork for the foundation of ASEAN starting in 1967.
President Marcos also discussed with Indonesian and Singaporean leaders concerning security of the ASEAN region. This is Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
As part of the economic recovery program of the Marcos administration, the House of Representatives has started deliberating on 4 tax measures. Now, what are these measures? Let's find out from Nadine Aguilar.
The House of Representatives has started a plenary debate on 4 tax-related bills of the Marcos administration. These include House Bill 4339, or Passive Income Financial Intermediation Tax Bill. Under the Package 4 of the Comprehensive Tax Reform of the Marcos administration, the system for tax collection will be simplified. These will include a unified tax rate of 15% for royalties and interest, dividends, and capital gains. Stock transaction tax will be reduced to 0.1% from the current 0.6% to encourage more equity capital market investment. Under the proposal, there will be exemptions to excise tax on pickup trucks and the 30 pesos documentary stamp tax on documents like NBI clearance, birth certificate, and diploma. House Bill 4102, or a proposal to impose 20 pesos excise tax on every kilo of single-use plastic bags, and House Bill 4122, or digital service tax, are also submitted for plenary discussion. The digital service tax proposal will impose a 12% value-added tax or VAT to non-resident digital service providers in the country, like Netflix, Spotify, Lazada, and other online service providers. Meanwhile, exempted under the bill are educational services usually used by institutions accredited by the Department of Education or DepEd, Commission on Higher Education or CHED, and Technical Education and Skills Development Authority or TESDA. Lastly, submitted also for plenary discussion is House Bill 4125, or Ease of Paying Taxes Bill, which aims to modernize tax payment and filing of income tax returns for small taxpayers. During his State of the Nation address or SONA last July, President Marcos proposed 18 priority bills to Congress, mostly including the economic reform agenda of the government for its post-pandemic recovery. Nadine Aguilar, reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The unemployment rate of the country decreased by 5.2% in the month of July. This has been the lowest level of unemployment in the Philippines since October 2019 or before the COVID-19 pandemic started. According to the Labor Force Survey of the Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA, last July, the number of unemployed Filipinos are at 2.6 million. This is lesser compared to 2.76 million unemployed individuals last April of 2022. But last April 2020, where the COVID-19 pandemic started, the number of unemployed Filipinos reached 17.6 million.
The Senate Blue Ribbon Committee will file administrative and criminal charges against 4 officials over the botched importation of 300,000 metric tons of sugar. Man Corvera has the story.
The Senate Blue Ribbon Committee has recommended the filing of administrative and criminal charges against an official of the Department of Agriculture and 3 former officials of the Sugar Regulatory Administration over the controversial Sugar Order Number 4. The committee, however, absolved Executive Secretary Vic Rodriguez of any responsibility. The panel's committee report, signed by 4 out of 17 members of the Blue Ribbon Committee, recommended the filing of charges against former Agricultural Undersecretary Locadio Sebastian, former SRA Administrator Hermenegildo Serafica, and SRA board members Roland Beltran and Aurelio Valderrama. They will be charged with violation of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act, Anti-Agricultural Smuggling Act, and usurpation of official functions before the Office of the Ombudsman.
The committee further recommends to the Honorable Office of the Ombudsman the filing of the following charges against the following personalities. Number 1, there is preliminary evidence on record indicating that the public officials involved in the sugar fiasco.
The 4 would also face administrative charges including serious dishonesty, grave misconduct, gross neglect of duty, conduct prejudicial to the best interest of the service, and gross insubordination. The Senate panel would also ask the Department of Justice for the Bureau of Immigration to issue a lookout bulletin against the 4. Because of the Bosch importation of 300,000 metric tons of sugar, the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee also recommended some remedial legislation like amendments to the Republic Act 10659 to include provisions on the transparency and accountability in the issuance of import permits, amendments to Executive Order Number 8, increasing to 8 from 4 the current SRA board, and making the Agriculture Secretary an ex officio member. The Senate panel also recommended the revision and rationalization of sugar importation, as well as allotment of the right fundings for the Sugar Industry Development Act and the creation of a sugar importation plan.
A review and rationalization of the sugar importation policy of the government. Number 5, full funding for the SIDA Law or Republic Act 10659. And number 6, it is also recommended that the SRA immediately prepare a sugar importation plan with appropriate safeguards clearly specified for review of higher authorities.
Senate Minority Leader Aquilino Coco Pimentel said the minority bloc would file a separate report.
Miscommunication, I mean, if you purposely did not answer, I don't know if you can call that miscommunication or it's really lack of communication. So yeah, just wait for our minority report. We will discuss this under.
Senator Risa Hontiveros said clearly that Sebastian was a scapegoat and he will be charged when he only speaks for the truth. Hontiveros questioned the move to subpoena Rodriguez when he did not even detail before the committee what transpired during the August 4 meeting, where it said the executive secretary ordered to pursue the importation of 300,000 metric tons of sugar. Mayan Corvera reporting for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
The peso once again plunges to a historic low when it closes at 57.18 to a dollar this Thursday. The currency on Wednesday was close to 57.135 pesos to a dollar. Analysts say the U.S. dollar is expected to continue its rally, which may result to further depreciation of other currencies like the Japanese yen, Korean won, and the Philippine peso. Also contributing to the peso depreciation is the country's economic recovery and the increased imports. Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas or BSP is expected to raise the interest rates to stabilize the currency and tame inflation in its next policy meeting slated on September 22. IFE Management Chief Financial Architect Enrique Fausto said the peso could weaken further to 58 to 60 pesos to a dollar if the BSP did not hike interest rates and match the U.S. Fed.
After Manila Electric Company or Meralco's reduction in electricity charges for the past months of July and August, the company's customers will experience higher charges this September. According to Meralco Corporate Communications Head Joe Zaldariaga, the overall rate for a typical household will increase by 39.07 centavos per kilowatt hour. The rate hike will be around 78 pesos in the total bill of residential customers consuming 200 kilowatt hours per month. 117 pesos for a household consuming 300 kilowatt hours per month, and 156 pesos for households consuming 400 kilowatt hours per month, and additional 195 pesos for households consuming 500 kilowatt hours per month. Meralco said it needed to get its supply from more expensive alternative fuel because of the ongoing Malampaya gas supply restriction. It added that the price hike was caused by an increase in the generation charge caused by a kick in the price of coal. Now, the generation charge covers the cost of power purchased by the company from its suppliers, such as independent power producers with power supply agreements, and the wholesale electricity spot market. It also said that the Philippine peso's depreciation against the US dollar was another reason, since most of its supply is dollar denominated. Today, the peso closed at 57.02 against the US dollar.
Tropical storm Inday maintains its strength as it continues to move over the Philippine Sea. On the 5 p.m. bulletin, Weather Bureau Pagasa says that its current location is at 1,045 kilometers east of northern Luzon. It is packed with maximum sustained winds of 75 kilometers per hour near the center and gustiness of up to 90 kilometers per hour and moving westward at 20 kilometers per hour. No parts of the country are under the tropical cyclone wind signal, but this tropical cyclone is expected to intensify into severe tropical storm category within the next 24 hours. Meanwhile, Tropical Storm Inday is unlikely to bring moderate to heavy rains throughout the forecast period. It is tracked to exit the Philippine area of responsibility as it reaches the Ryukyu Island by Sunday or Monday.
Up next, disease now threatens Pakistan's population devastated by floods. Memphis shooting rampage leaves at least 4 dead and 3 injured. And a construction crane in Hong Kong collapses and claims 3 lives. Stay tuned for more news here on Mata ng Agila International.
Po yan talaga. Yan. Opo, good po yan.
Tignan mo. Wala po atang papin. Ma'am, sir, meron po tayong free Umibo chicken. Ito, boss. Ice cream, buy one, take one. Tsaka wait lang nga pala, meron nga pala tayong libreng toppings. Mamili na kayo, Jambe. Ano bang gusto nyo? Ha? Graba? Buhangin o semento?
Di matapos ang singhalan kung ano ang kaibahan.
Siyempre, itong challenge na to is first to make 3 points. Okay? Pwede mo kong balyahin kung kaya mo. Kung kaya mo.
Oy! Traveling, traveling.
Oh no! It's Biro only!
It's B.O.
Sa Net 25.
Biro only, bro.
Ang morning show na always nagbibigay ng ngiti at saya sa bawat kada all over the world. Tara na't ma-inspire at ma-amaze sa kwento ng mga bawat kada na nagwagi sa anumang hamon at pagsubok ng buhay. Itago na mga remote control at tumambay lang dito sa paborito niyong barkada sa umaga, ang Kada Umaga! Dahil kayo ang bida dito.
Pasiglahin ang araw ng linggo. Kayo'y maaantig.
Huwag mo ubusin ang luha mo sa wala dito.
Mapapaisip.
What are we gonna do?
Matatawa.
Why so much food? Even no money, no honey, we make utang-utang.
Mapapahanga. At mapapainda. Kasama si Daking. ang nag-iisang Comedy King Dolphy.
Ano pangalan mo? Big po. Big po. Ano mo si Fernando po?
Tito Vic and Joey.
Mahirap ikwento, Vicky. Mahabang istorya.
At marami pang artista na kinagigiliwan noon magpahanggang ngayon.
My love, my endless love.
Sine Throwback. Tuwing Linggo, alas 12 ng tanghali sa Net 25.
Panalo tayo pag together, wala talo pag together. Let's get together sa Net 25.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Rain, flash floods, and mudslides threatened the search for dozens of people still missing on Thursday, days after a strong quake rocked mountainous southwest China, killing at least 82. After the magnitude 6.6 quake hit about 43 kilometers southeast of the city of Kangdin in Sichuan province, 46 people died in Ganzi Prefecture, while 36 deaths in neighboring Yan City were recorded. Moreover, more than 270 others were injured, while the number of missing remained at 35. Described as inherently fragile, the local area is reminded by the China Meteorological Administration to be aware of the secondary disasters such as landslides and mudslides, which may happen if additional rainfall happens after the earthquake. Meanwhile, the People's Liberation Army, paramilitary police, and fire rescue services dispatched more than 10,000 workers to the area, who continued search operations and landslide cleanup efforts in the remote countryside. Rescue operations continue in Pakistan as large parts of the country's southern region remains underwater. And the United Nations warns the humanitarian situation in the country is expected to get worse. The flooding has killed more than 1,300 people, and more than 33 million are suffering the effects of the rising waters. Medical camps have been set up across the country to deal with increasing cases of disease. Watery diarrhea, malaria, dengue, measles, and hepatitis are still common, as well as COVID-19, HIV, and polio. Medicine is in short supply, and the World Health Organization is appealing for another $19 million from donors to ease the situation. Food insecurity is another problem because crops are devastated and livestock has been destroyed. The second suspect wanted in a stabbing rampage in Canada that left 10 people dead and 18 others injured has died shortly after being captured Wednesday. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police arrested 32-year-old Miles Sanderson after they forced the stolen vehicle he was driving off the road about 2 hours from where the crimes occurred. RCMP Assistant Commissioner Rhonda Blackmore says once in police custody, Sanderson began having problems.
Shortly after his arrest, he went into medical distress. Nearby, EMS were called by police to attend the scene, and he was transported to a hospital in Saskatoon. He was pronounced deceased at the hospital.
The cause of death has not been revealed and an autopsy will be done. Sanderson and his brother, 32-year-old Damien, were wanted for the crimes which occurred at 13 different locations in two northern Saskatchewan communities, the James Smith Cree Nation and the village of Weldon. Damien was found dead Monday on the James Smith Cree Nation. His injuries did not appear to be self-inflicted, according to police at the time. Blackmore says the motive for the stabbings is not known and may never be now that both suspects are dead.
Unfortunately, now that Miles is deceased, we may never have an understanding of that motivation. And we've conducted 120 interviews to this point. There's more that we have to do, but witnesses and people around him only have so much information. His motivation may at this time and forever only be known to Miles.
A 19-year-old man who went on a shooting rampage through Memphis has been arrested, police say. Authorities from the Memphis Police Department held a press conference early morning and confirmed that the suspect, Ezekiel Dejuan Kelly, allegedly killed at least 4 people and injured 3 others in a shooting spree that stretched to at least 8 different crime scenes. Kelly allegedly went on a drive-by shooting rampage for almost 8 hours, including carjacking, forcing locals in Memphis to shelter. A warning had been issued by the police regarding Kelly, who allegedly opened fire while driving a light blue vehicle. The authorities say that he then switched cars to a gray SUV. It also appeared that the suspect allegedly showed parts of the crime via a live stream uploaded to social media. Memphis Police Department Chief CJ Davis also said there was an initial homicide reported to them at approximately 12:56 a.m. on Wednesday morning. 2 weapons were recovered at the scene of Kelly's arrest, according to the Memphis Police Department. Multiple charges against the suspects are currently pending.
3 people are dead and 6 injured after a huge tower crane collapsed at a building under construction in Hong Kong. 1 man died at the scene, another on his way to hospital, and a third was found dead at the collapsed base of the crane. The 65-ton crane fell on top of several cargo containers, which were being used as offices at the site. It was not lifting anything at the time of the accident. An investigation is underway to determine whether the collapse was due to a design flaw or human error. The construction site was for a public housing project that aimed to create 19,000 homes. Work at the site has been halted.
A group of French lawmakers landed in Taiwan, the first high-level European delegation since China conducted huge war drills to protest a visit to the island by U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The trip came as Taiwan held 2 days of live fire drills on a strategic island that lies between its coast and China. Taiwan is under constant threat of an invasion by China, which claims the self-ruled island as part of its territory to be seized one day. Beijing lashes out at any diplomatic action that might lend Taiwan legitimacy and has responded with growing anger to visits by Western officials and politicians. The delegation of 5 French lawmakers is being led by Senator Cyril Pellevat. It was the 4th visit by French politicians in the past 12 months. Many European powers have also grown more vocal in support of Taiwan in recent years, while Russia invading Ukraine has deepened fears China might do the same to its neighbor. The United States and France officially recognize Beijing over Taipei, but they both remain key allies of Taiwan and maintain de facto diplomatic ties with the island.
Russia voiced regret that a report by the UN nuclear watchdog warning of risks at Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia plant did not blame Kyiv for shelling the Moscow-occupied site.
Сожалеем, что в вашем докладе выполнение гарантии МАГАТЭ на Украине за период с апреля по сентябрь сего года, который появился буквально пару часов назад, источник обстрелов прямо не указан. С пониманием относимся к вашему положению главы международного регулятора, но в нынешней ситуации крайне важно называть вещи своими именами.
Russian Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia also told Rafael Grossi, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, that if the provocations by the Kyiv regime continue, there is no guarantee that there won't be serious consequences. He pointed out that the responsibility lies fully with Kyiv and its Western backers and all other members of the Security Council. However, Ukraine also hit back, saying that there were no issues at the plant until Russia seized it. The world not only deserves but needs the representatives of the IAEA to force Russia to demilitarize the territory of the nuclear power plant and return full control over the plant to Ukraine, said Sergei Kyslytsya, Ukraine's ambassador. Earlier this week, the IAEA released a report calling for a demilitarized zone to be set up outside Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant.
There are reports that children in Ukraine are being forcibly taken to Russia. UN human rights spokesperson Ilse Brands-Keris says she is concerned.
There have been credible allegations of forced transfers of unaccompanied children to Russian-occupied territory or to the Russian Federation itself. We are concerned that the Russian authorities have adopted a simplified procedure to grant Russian citizenship to children without parental care, and that these children would be eligible for adoption by Russian families.
Kerry says the forcible removal of children is part of a larger-scale plan for relocations and deportations. Coming up, new UK Prime Minister Liz Truss expected to freeze energy bills. High heating costs close swimming pools in France. And New York ends 28-month mask mandate on public transport. We will be back with more news here on Mata ng Agila International.
Relo ko. Sikat na sa Europe.
May relo ka naman pala. Eh, ba't lagi kang late dito?
Wala pang baterya. Hindi ko nabibilan.
Marunong ho ba kayong mag-Ingles?
Yun lang ma'am. Di po ako marunong yan. Huwag ka mag-alala ma'am. Meron po akong interpreter.
Interpreter?
Oy! 30 seconds! 10! 9!
Isa ka ba sa nagulat sa mga gastos sa biglaang pagkakasakit o pagpanaw ng isang mahal sa buhay? Nakarinig ka na rin ba ng mga kwento na kahit masakit mawalan ng mahal sa buhay o magkaroon ng may malubhang sakit, kinaya pa rin nila na pinagdaanan dahil may insurance na sumagot ng gastos? Perhaps many of us are also planning for insurance to have funds available for emergency situations and even death and critical illnesses. Pero paano nga ba ang pag-invest sa pamamagitan ng insurance? We'll find out from our special guest, Mr. Harold De Leon, First Vice President of Security Bank Corporation.
This pandemic has really taught us the value of insurance, and I strongly encourage you to get protected. Do it now, mahirap ipagpabukas ito.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. New Prime Minister Liz Truss will unveil plans to limit energy bill rises on Thursday, spending billions to protect people from soaring prices. She also pledged to set out an emergency budget that would get the economy growing to fund public services and the NHS. From the UK, here's Ryan Florentino.
New British Prime Minister Liz Truss was expected to unveil a costly plan to freeze domestic fuel bills to help ease the burden of a soaring cost of living crisis. Truss only took over from Boris Johnson on Tuesday, but has vowed to hit the ground running as calls mount for urgent action to help hard-pressed households and businesses. Let's listen in.
I will take immediate action to help people with their energy bills, but also secure our long-term energy supply. I will take immediate action to make sure we have lower taxes and we grow the economy. And that way, I will ensure we have a positive future.
Reports suggest the plan could top more than £100 billion, surpassing Britain's COVID-era furloughed jobs support scheme. British households are facing a colossal 80% jump in domestic electricity and gas prices from October, which have stoked fears millions will be unable to heat their homes this winter. UK inflation spiked to a 40-year peak in 10.1% in July, with some experts predicting a jump to 18%. An energy freeze would be a costly measure that might not improve the situation in the long run, according to economist Neil Shearing at research consultancy Capital Economics. If the new Truss government implements a freeze on domestic gas and electricity prices, then inflation may peak at around 11% in October this year, Shearing said. Added to the backdrop, Truss also faces the prospect of growing industrial unrest as more UK workers protest over wages that have failed to keep pace with sky-high inflation. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I am Ryan Florentino for Matana and Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Britain's Prince Charles and Prince Williams have traveled to Queen Elizabeth II's residence at Balmoral Castle in Scotland, following news that doctors were concerned for her health. In a statement, the Buckingham Palace said the Queen's doctors have recommended that the monarch remain under medical supervision. The Queen remains comfortable at Balmoral. The statement added. A royal source was quoted by a news agency saying that immediate family members of the 96-year-old monarch have been informed of the concern for her health. Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, skipped a charity event in London to also head to the Balmoral Castle. Meanwhile, Britain's new Prime Minister Liz Truss tweeted today that the whole country will be deeply concerned by the news from Buckingham Palace this lunchtime.
Power companies in Europe profiting from the energy crisis face a cap on their revenues. European Union President Ursula von der Leyen says excessive profits are being earned by nuclear and renewable power companies, which she describes as unfair to consumers.
These revenues do not reflect their production costs, so it is now time for the consumers to benefit from the low costs of low carbon sources, like, for example, the renewables. We will propose to rechannel these unexpected profits. We channel them to the member states so that the member states can support the vulnerable households and vulnerable companies.
Well, but that move could backfire. Russian President Vladimir Putin says Russia will stop delivering oil and gas to countries that introduce price caps. He says capping prices, and these are his words, is an absolutely stupid decision.
Saudi Arabia is lowering prices for crude oil being shipped to Asia and Europe next month. However, the country is raising prices for most other barrels sent to the U.S. Asian refiners will pay about $4 per barrel less in October compared to September deliveries, while shipments to Northern Europe and the Mediterranean will be about $2 per barrel lower. The pullback in prices is the first cut in prices in roughly 4 months and was largely expected as the price of Brent crude oil has fallen in recent months. On the other hand, U.S. buyers will pay about $0.50 more for Saudi oil, while the price for its Arab light crude will remain unchanged.
In France, swimming pools are another victim of the energy crisis. Take a look. 30 pools are being closed because the company that operates them says it cannot afford the heating costs to keep the water warm. Vert Marine runs pools as well as ice rinks across France. It says its annual energy bill has jumped to 100 million euros from 15 million, which leaves the company in a losing position. The closures have upset sports and education groups who say adults and children won't be able to learn to swim. The country's sports ministry has heavily promoted swimming as a way to prevent drowning. Local governments say they cannot help because they too are struggling to pay high energy bills.
New York City is ending a 28-month-old COVID mandate on requiring masks on public transport, Governor Kathy Hochul says. Masks will no longer be required in airports and rideshare vehicles, Hochul added. The state introduced the mandate in April 2020 as the virus was spreading throughout New York City. But now wearing masks will be optional, Hochul said, citing recent guidance from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. We have to restore some normalcy to our lives, the governor said. Masks are encouraged but optional. She added that New York is in a far stronger position as infections and hospitalizations fall. However, the governor cleared that masks are still required in nursing homes, hospitals, and other healthcare facilities licensed by the state.
This goes to all office workers. A new study by Plus One says micro breaks of 10 minutes or less during work can increase vigor and decrease fatigue. According to Patricia Albulescu and her research team from the West University of Timisoara in Romania, those who took micro breaks at work had 60% better odds of feeling energetic. Albulescu's team reviewed 22 previously published studies that included 2,335 participants for the past 30 years. Now, so what constitutes micro breaks? A senior research scientist told local health media website Healthline that it may be in the form of squats or stretches next to one's desk. Other forms of micro breaks are going for a walk, browsing social media, eating a snack, or taking a mindful deep breath are all examples of micro breaks. Another researcher suggested the 20-20-20 technique, in which an individual must look at something 20 feet away for 20 seconds every 20 minutes. Or one can do the 28-2 rule, in which for every 20 minutes of sitting, one must stand for 8 minutes and move for 2 minutes. A report from Time magazine says short breaks are helpful at work, and combining them with long breaks helps workers feel better and produce quality output. Breaks prevent burnout, which has already been declared as an occupational phenomenon by the World Health Organization in 2019.
A new UN report says decades of progress in terms of life expectancy, education, and economic prosperity have begun unraveling since the pandemic. Over the past 2 years, 9 out of 10 countries have slid backwards on the UN's Human Development Index. The report cited the COVID-19 pandemic, the war in Ukraine, and the impact of climate change for putting global development in reverse. The Human Development Index was launched in 1990 in an effort to look beyond GDP as a measure of well-being. Switzerland sits at the top of the index this year with a life expectancy of 84 years, an average of 16.5 years spent in education, and a median salary of $66,000. At the other end of the scale is South Sudan, where life expectancy is 55. People spend just 5.5 years in school on average and earn $768 per year. Setbacks in a majority of the 191 countries included in the index, especially in life expectancy, have taken development levels back to those seen in 2016, reversing a 30-year trend. In the U.S., life expectancy at birth has dropped by more than 2 years since 2019. In other countries, the decline is much higher. The year's index is based on data from 2021. But the outlook for 2022 is grim, says Achim Steiner, one of the report's authors. Steiner points out that more than 80 countries are facing problems paying off their national debt.
Air quality around the world is expected to get worse. That prediction from the UN's World Meteorological Organization has just been set out. Spokesman Lorenzo Labrador says there are a couple of reasons for why air pollution is on the increase. Take a look.
An anticipated rise in the frequency, intensity, and duration of heat waves is also associated with an increase in wildfires this century, and this is likely to result in a worsening of air quality and human health, and also negative impacts on ecosystems.
Labrador says the interaction between pollution and climate change will impact millions of people over the coming century. Up next, U.S. stocks rebound despite more hawkish Fed talk. Former U.S. President Barack Obama's portrait finally unveiled at the White House. And a motorist was collared by authorities in Israel after letting his dog drive a car. Mata ng Agila International. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Heroes come in all forms. At para sa ating mga bida ngayong gabi, iba't iba man ang paraan nila ng pagtulong, iisa pa rin ang puso nila. Ihanda na ang kubyertos at panoorin ang kwento ng boy kanin.
Yung boy kanin, binabanggit pa lang, ngumingiti na yung mga tao eh.
Total package eh. Nandun na lahat eh. Ang hahanapin mo sa typical Filipino food.
Sa gitna ng matinding pagsubok na to, sumulpot ang isang bida. Paano kaya niya naisalba ang mga empleyado, pati na ang kanyang negosyo? Halina silipin ang hot property ngayon sa mundo ng installation art. Alamin natin ang naging kwento ni Lolo at ni Dr. Sherwin Enriquez, ang ating Be The Best of the Week.
Paano po kayo pupunta doon?
Lalakad nga.
Papunta Maynila po? Sabay na kayo sa akin, tay.
Alam ko kung gaano kasaya yung pakiramdam na may tutulong sa'yo sa mga panahong walang-wala ka.
Muli, ako po ang inyong host, Aga Mulak, na lagi nagpapaalala sa inyo, you can be the hero that someone needs.
Add to cart, di ma. Ating gabi na. Wait lang, ma. Minsan na kasi to sale, ma. Minsan? Eh, buwan-buwan inaabangan mo yung 1-1, 2-2.
Hi, Miss Jane.
Sa'yo lahat yan.
Kalahati pa lang po yan, ma'am. May paparating ba po tayo mamaya?
Ha! Darling, mai-consider bang addiction yung mga galak ni Jane? Parang okay naman yung term addiction.
Panalo tayo pag together, wala talo pag together. Let's get together. Sa Net 25.
Wall Street stocks finished solidly higher, shrugging off recent weakness despite hawkish or more hawkish Federal Reserve commentary. Analysts point to a drop in oil prices as a key support to U.S. equities on a day that saw investors engage in bargain hunting. The Dow Jones Industrial Average gains 1.4% to close at 31,581.28. The broad-based S&P 500 rises 1.8% to 3,979.87, while the tech-rich Nasdaq Composite Index advances 2.1% to end at 11,791.90. The gains come despite comments from Fed Vice Chair Lael Brainard, who warned that the U.S. Central Bank will stay the course on its aggressive fight against high inflation for as long as it takes to bring prices down. She says interest rates need to rise further, again knocking down hopes of a rate cut next year as the economy slows. The Fed also reports showing prospects for the U.S. economy are flagging as high prices force Americans to focus more of their spending on staples, with demand set to weaken further. Huawei has announced the Mate 50 series a day ahead of Apple's September event, and with a feature that the iPhone 14 is expected to offer, the ability to send texts via satellite communication.
Thanks to China's global Beidou satellite network, the Mate 50 and Mate 50 Pro will be able to send short texts and utilize navigation, allowing for communication in areas without cellular signals. Based on Huawei's description of its system, it appears like the Mate 50 phones will only be able to send texts by satellite, but won't be able to receive them. However, satellite-based texting aims to provide an emergency connection in places without a signal to get urgent messages out.
Nick Kyrgios was fined $14,000 for his spectacular double racket smashing tantrum at the end of his U.S. Open defeat to Karen Khachanov. The Australian violently crushed two rackets into the surface of the Arthur Ashe Stadium after his 5-set quarterfinal loss. Primarily punished for bad language and spitting, Kyrgios is now facing his 5th sanction of the tournament, having a total fine of $32,000, creating a small dent to his total prize money of $445,000. Wimbledon runner-up Kyrgios was seen as a potential champion in New York, but his loss to Russia's Khachanov left him devastated. According to Kyrgios, he felt like it was either winning it all or nothing at all.
Zac Efron has revealed the truth behind the plastic surgery rumors which circulated last year. The High School Musical star confessed it was actually a nasty accident at home that caused the massive transformation in his face. Efron said he slipped on a pair of socks while running at his home, which caused him to smash his chin into a granite fountain. He also said that he lost consciousness and woke up with his chin bone hanging off his face. The 34-year-old actor explained that when he was injured, the masseter muscles on the inside of his face and jaw then compensated for his injury, causing them to grow in size, thus his remarkable transformation. The star also claimed to not know that his face had in fact gone viral for his different-looking jaw until his mother called to ask if he had gone under the knife. He currently heads the Netflix web documentary series Down to Earth with Zac Efron, for which he won a Daytime Emmy Award.
The Obamas are back in the White House, not as President and First Lady, but as visitors. Former U.S. President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama are finally being honored with the official unveiling of their portraits in the White House. They were invited by current President Joe Biden. This resumes a tradition that fell by the wayside under Donald Trump. When Obama was president, he invited his predecessor George W. Bush and his wife Barbara for their portrait unveiling in 2012. However, Trump declined to invite the Obamas amid undisguised contempt between both leaders in the wake of Trump's 2016 election win. As for Trump, the Biden administration says it has no direct say on whether or when his own portrait could be hung up. It is not clear whether the ex-president has even commissioned an official painting. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis are the new kids in school. Kate Middleton and Prince William stepped out to bring their 3 children to their new school at Lambrook. While classes officially start on Thursday, the kids attended a preview day for new students with their parents. Sporting a polka dot dress, Kate held hands with her 2 sons, who sported matching navy shorts with patterned button-down shirts. Though the school does offer boarding options, Prince George, Prince Charlotte, and Prince Louis are expected to be day students at Lambrook.
A man in Jerusalem has been arrested after posting footage on social media showing his dog steering his car. Though the car was moving at the time, the dog was seen sitting on the driver's lap with the driver still in control of the wheel. Authorities decided it was necessary to arrest and collar him, not the dog, but the man, for reckless driving. The police pointed out that the suspect behaved in a dangerous and improper manner when he let his dog get hold of the vehicle, thereby endangering road users. While investigating the particulars of the case, it was found out that the suspect did not only endanger road users with his illegal actions, but also drove the car without a valid road test. Lesson learned for the suspect, as dogs are passengers, not drivers.
While the war rages on in Ukraine, a chimpanzee from a Ukrainian zoo in Kharkiv managed to escape. The primate was spotted wandering around near Freedom Square. According to local media, the chimp, named Chi-Chi, managed to untangle a protective fence and easily open locks on the enclosure before going for a stroll in the city. Zoo employees managed to persuade him to come home, offering him treats, but that did not work. What sealed the deal to return was his favorite yellow rain jacket, followed by a hug from a zoo employee.
And now here are some historical events that happened on this day, September 8. In 1952, Ernest Hemingway's novel, The Old Man and the Sea, was published. The novel was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction, and it was cited by the Nobel community as contributing to their awarding of the Nobel Prize in Literature to Hemingway in 1954. And in 1954 still, the 8-member Southeast Asia Treaty Organization, intended primarily to deter the further spread of communism in Southeast Asia, was founded in Manila, Philippines. Its founding members were the Philippines, the United States, France, Australia, the United Kingdom, New Zealand, Pakistan, and Thailand. The organization was disbanded officially in 1977. And in 1966, Star Trek, the original series, premiered on NBC TV, starring William Shatner as Captain Kirk and Leonard Nimoy as Mr. Spock.
And to help you go through your week, here's a quote from Roy T. Bennett, an American author. You cannot control the behavior of others, but you can always choose how you respond to it.
Control what you can control, and that is your response.
Exactly. Best example would be you driving on the road.
Never let the dog drive the car.
Exactly.
They're passengers, not
never
drivers.
ever. Or cats.
Or
now
cats.
that you're a cat mama.
I know. Well, that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I'm CJ Hero.
And I'm Nina Brichielago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.